Hello chess friends. Like and subscribe to enjoy more games like this. Pawn to e4 is the best move.
Control the centre with the knight, preparing to develop other pieces and potentially creating a strong pawn centre. This move also eyes the kingside pawn structure, setting up for potential future attacks.
Pawn to c4 is the best move.
This is a big move. The opening is called Indian Defense, West Indian Defense.
This is a book move. The opening is called King's Indian Defense.
Bishop to g7 is the best move.
Bishop to g5 is the best move.
Preparing to develop the kingside pieces and control the pawn to f5 square, bishop to g7 is a solid move that also pins the knight on c3, making it harder for black to play h6.
Pawn to h4 is good. This is a book move. The opening is called Grünfeld Defense, Russian variation.
I played pawn captures on c4 to challenge Zhang's control of the centre and create space for my pieces to develop. The pin on Zhang's knight also makes it difficult for him to respond effectively.
Pawn to e4 is best.
I played pawn to c5 to challenge black's central pawn structure and prepare for potential pawn breaks on the queenside. This move also pins black's knight on c6, making it difficult for them to maneuver.
Pawn to d5.
Castling kingside to connect rooks, prepare for potential pawn storm on the kingside, and maintain kingside pawn structure.
I played bishop captures on c4 to challenge Zhang's control of the queenside and create space for my pieces to develop. The pin on Zhang's knight also makes it difficult for him to defend his position.
Bishop to g4.
Kingside castle.
Knight from file b to d7 is best. This defends a pawn on c5. This develops a knight.
Bishop to e2 is best.
Bishop captures on f3.
I played bishop captures on f3 to capture the knight on f6, creating a strong initiative and preparing to develop the rest of the pieces. This move also pins the knight on f6, making it difficult for black to play in f6 square and opens up the f-file for my rook to potentially use later.
Pawn to f6 is excellent. Pawn to c4 is best.
Pawn to h5 is the best move.
Pawn to c4.
Bishop to e3 is best. This develops a bishop.
I played rook to c8 to prepare for the potential pawn storm on the queenside, supporting their pawn and putting pressure on black's position. This move also helps to control the pawn to c5 square, which is a key strategic location.
Bishop to e2.
Knight to c5.
Pawn to e5.
Knight from file f to e4.
Knight captures on e4 is the best move.
Attacking the knight on f6, gaining control of the centre and preparing to develop the rest of the pieces. The pin on the knight on pawn to f6 also puts pressure on black's position.
Queen to d4 is best. This defends a pawn and pawn on b12 and f5. This attacks the knight.
Knight to d6 is brilliant. This defends a pawn on b7. This sacrifices the knight. Knight to c5 is best. This defends a pawn on b7.
I played bishop to g4 to attack Zhang's kingside pawn structure and prepare for potential kingside attack. The pin on Zhang's knight also makes it difficult for him to defend against my attack.
Knight to f5 is best. This offers a trade. This creates a fork on bishop, queen and pawn.
Bishop captures on f5.
Pawn captures on f5 is best.
I played pawn to h5 to challenge Zhang's kingside pawn structure and create a potential weakness on the kingside. This move also prepares to potentially push pawn to d4 further, putting pressure on black's position.
Queen to c7.
Bishop to f4.
Queen to c5.
Preparing to develop the queenside pieces and putting pressure on black's position, queen to c3 supports the pawn on pawn to d4 and prepares to potentially play d5, while also eyeing black's knight on c5.
Pawn to h6 is best.
Preparing to develop the queenside pieces, rook from file f to d1 supports the pawn on pawn to d4 and prepares to potentially play d5, putting pressure on black's position and controlling the pawn to d5 square.
Rook from file f to d8.
Bishop to e3 is a solid choice, pinning the knight on pawn to d5 and preparing to develop the rest of the pieces. It also supports the central pawn structure and prepares to potentially play d4, putting pressure on black's position.
Queen to c7 is the best move.
I played pawn to f4 to challenge black's pawn structure and create space for my pieces to develop. The move also pins black's knight on f6, making it harder for them to attack my position.
Pawn to e6.
Preparing to develop the queenside pawns and control the pawn to d5 square, pawn to d6 supports the pawn on pawn to d5 and prepares to potentially play pawn captures on d5 in the future, also slightly weakening the kingside pawn structure.
Queen to c6 is best.
Pawn to f5.
Preparing to develop the kingside pieces and support the pawn on d5, pawn to f6 also slightly weakens the kingside pawn structure, but it's a common move in the Grünfeld defense to control the pawn to d5 square and prepare for potential pawn breaks on the queenside.
Pawn captures on f6.
I played bishop to f8 to prepare for the potential pawn storm on the kingside, supporting the central pawns and preparing to develop the rest of the pieces. This move also puts pressure on black's position, making it harder for them to maneuver.
Bishop to b6 is the best move.
Queen to e8 is good. This defends a pawn on e6. This attacks the pawn. King to h7 is best.
Bishop to e5 is best. This defends a pawn and pawn on f4 and d6.
Queen captures on h5.
I played rook to d4 to challenge Zhang's pawn structure and prepare for potential counterplay on the queenside. The move also pinned Zhang's knight on f5, making it difficult for them to maneuver.
Rook to c6 is best.
Attacking the pawn to c4 with rook captures on c4 creates a strong initiative, putting pressure on black's position and preparing to develop the rest of the pieces. This move also opens up the d-file for the rook to potentially use later.
Bishop captures on d6.
Rook captures on c6.
Pawn captures on c6 is best.
I played queen captures on c6 to take advantage of the pin on Zhang's knight, forcing him to move it and creating a weakness on the queenside. This move also puts pressure on Zhang's position and prepares for a potential pawn storm.
Bishop to b4 is best.
Rook to f1 pinning Zhang's knight on s6, preparing to launch a potential attack on black's position, while also supporting the pawn to e4 and preparing to potentially push pawn to d5 further.
Rook to d1 is the best move.
I played queen to b6 to attack Zhang's pawn on f4, creating a potential fork on the f-file. This move also puts pressure on Zhang's position, forcing them to respond to a potential threat. The pin on Zhang's knight on pawn to f5 adds to the pressure, making it difficult for them to defend.
Bishop to f8 is the best move.
Rook to f3 is best.
Rook to d5 is good. King to h7 is best.
Queen to h2.
Bishop to c5 is the best move.
I played rook to c3 to prepare for the potential pawn storm on the queenside, pinning Zhang's knight on pawn to c5 and gaining a strong initiative. This move also supports the central pawns and prepares to potentially launch a kingside attack.
King to g6 is the best move.
Queen captures on a6 is excellent. This captures a free pawn. Queen to a7 is best. This attacks the pawn. This move gains a tempo. This creates a checkmate threat.
Rook to d2.
Queen to b7 is best. This defends a pawn on b12. This creates a checkmate threat. The game is over. White wins.